Good morning, everybody. Perfect. Well, then we'll go ahead and get started. Everything looks like it's working smoothly today. So, as you know, today we'll be hearing from Bobby Fossen, who knows everything there is to know about Flexi. He's been doing this for years. He's been running his own shop, and lately he travels around the country teaching everyone how to use Flexi. So whether you've been using it for a long time or you're just starting out, he's going to be able to help you out with the tips and tricks and show you the different features of Flexi to help you be more productive with it. So today he's going to be talking about masking and some of the common uses of masking in Flexi. So he'll give you his presentation, should take about 15 or so minutes, and then after that we'll have our standard question and answer session. So if you do have any questions during the event or after, just go ahead and type them into the chat window in the bottom there, and then we'll try and answer as many of those as we can. So whether it is about masking or just something else general about Flexi, Bobby will know the answer or he will get the answer for you. And with that, we'll turn it over to him.
You got it. Thanks, Stuart. Hopefully we'll take a little bit more than 15 minutes. I usually get a little bit long-winded. And I agree with you, Nathan. I see in the chat, good afternoon. Freezing in Hagerstown, Maryland. I think half the country's freezing right now. So hopefully everybody's safe and stays warm. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started. What we're wanting to do is go through some of the common uses of the masking feature within the Flexi 12 software. If you have a print shop or print cut shop with hybrid device or print and separate cutter, you've probably used masking if you've been exposed to the Flexi product at all. So I'm going to go through and just kind of give you some common uses of these things, of this specific feature, and also give you a couple of ideas that maybe some of you haven't quite thought of that might open some opportunities for you, at least to consider about how to bring a little bit more business in, and also how to use some of the features or some of the functions in the order in which you do some of these within the Flexi software for masking. At the end of this, we're going to be going through a very short, quick Q&A session. We're, as Stuart said, feel free ask any questions as you're, listening in, and we'll be able to try to address as many of those as we can towards the end. If not, I'll supply you with email address, and you all can ask some questions or send me an email, and I'll be happy to help out. So what we'll do is I've went ahead and created a couple things. And by the way, this is an image of me with one of my customers out at the SGIA show. I hope I see a lot more of you at the ISA show coming up in Vegas in April. Looking forward to it quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the common masking type of pieces that we run into. For example, just starting with something very basic. I'm sure a lot of you printers out there are looking at doing things such as window per film, as well as just point of purchase or point of sale type signs or window coverings. So one of the things that's really common about, or one of the questions I get is, how do I take something like a common image? This is just a JPEG file. So how do I actually get that over top and masked excuse me, into each one of these panes without having to do each one individually? So this is just a quick tip. Again, a lot of you experienced users probably already know this, but here's the trick. What you've got to do is, if you have multiple panes of glass and you want to actually disperse this image across all of those, what you need to do first is select each one of these panes, hold your shift key, and then single click to select the rest of those panes to your group or to your selection. Then we're going to right click, and then at that point we're going to go in and we're going to group those. And I don't have my group because I just, for some reason, either they're ordered incorrectly or something there. So most everybody, that was a test. So go up to the Arrange menu, go to Group, and click on Group. And now what we've got is when we select that one object or one pane, all of them are selected. So then at that point, if you wanted to actually get ready to mask this for your customer, especially if you're doing artwork approval tool, where you're going to export this out as a JPEG or PDF for everybody to look at, here's one thing I would recommend. Take your image here, especially if you're doing on per film. Go ahead and actually then at that point, use your transparency option, your opacity here. Go ahead and lighten it up just a little bit. because when you're printing on your perf film, you're only printing to either 50 or 75 or 80% of it, not the whole material. So it's going to come across looking a little bit faded as it is. So go ahead, give them that expectation. If it pops just a little bit better, all the better for you. Hopefully you'll get a tip out of it. So here's what we're going to do. When it comes to masking, the number one thing is the bitmap or vector, which we'll get into in a minute, that you want to actually mask has to be on the bottom or underneath the image that you want to create as your template. So I'm going to move this over top, and then you see that it's actually ordered where that American flag is behind my window panes. So this should work with no problem. So I can select my window panes by single clicking on it. Again, hold my shift key, select the American flag. Then I'm going to right click and go down and choose mask. Now, if you don't like using right click, which you should get used to if at all possible, you can always go up to the arrange menu, choose mask, and mask it from there. So then at that point, now you've got pretty much a finished piece that you would be able to send over to your customer to take a look at. And again, it disperses that image throughout the entire piece, every single pane. If you wanted to do only one single pane at a time, the trick is don't group the objects. Select the panes that you want. For example, let me undo this a couple times. Let's say in this piece, we only want the top 3 panes. So let me undo that. I'm going to select my bitmap image. Let's take across the top, move it over top here. All right, so select these. I'm going to first select these. I'm going to ungroup. Then I'm going to select the top 3. We're going to arrange and group. Now again, they're frozen, they're stuck together. When I click on one, they select all. So this is just one way of doing it. But from here, I can select my bitmap image behind it and then go to arrange and mask. Now I just have those top pieces. Okay. So I have we've got a question in the queue. We'll try to address that here in just a few minutes, but it is a good question. So what we'll do is go through the next feature here, or the next file that I've got. So hopefully that will help out with a few things. I used this in the past when I had my sign shop back in Kentucky for small, window panes, storefront letters, storefront, doors, entrance doors, things like that. So hopefully that'll help out just a little bit. Just make sure that you're grouping the objects first, okay? So let me actually minimize that one. So another one that we run across quite a bit is actually taking, for example, let's see here, let me pull up my Ski Utah. So if we're wanting to actually create a print cut decal in this example, all right, so from here, what we're wanting to do is take our original image, and I've created a vector oval, which I could just very quickly recreate. Select our shapes tool, click and drag around to create the shape that I want. I'm going to resize that to fit where I want. And again, we're placing the vector over top of the object that we want to mask. It's going to actually work like a cookie cutter. So at that point, I can select the 2 pieces because the vector is on top, and then we can go to arrange and mask. So now we've pretty much cropped that out to where then at that point, I fill in my color, drop in my lettering. I'm going to right click and then send this Ski Utah up to the front. That way it is visible and on the top layer. And then as in previous webinars that we've done, we can very quickly select this, go into effects, create our contour cut, and checkbox, and we're done. So then at that point, you've got your full print cut decal finished. So that's just another example of actually using the mask utility or the mask function within the software. All right, so another thing that comes into play is I have some customers that have actually used the Flexi software for not only signs, but anything and everything from business cards to magazine covers and different things like that. So this was just an example I threw together. This was actually an image that an instructor actually sent over to me. And again, forgive the low resolution image down here. This is just an example. So what we've done is I've actually just quickly laid this out, but what I wanted to show is that you can take an image background and then use a shape to actually use that as the mask itself. So in this case, what I did is, let me just separate this out. I'm going to make a copy, bring it down. So I'm just going to go through and delete some of these pieces to get them out in order to show you the details of what I'm really wanting to get to, which is the masking. So what I've got is I actually have two objects here. I have my original bitmap image, which is in the background, and then I have a vector object over top. So what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll unmask this and show you what it looks like. So this is the mask or the object that I created, and I'm going to show you how to create that here in just a second. So I'll delete that out. So this is our original image. So what I did is I went through, I just used my rectangle tool. And then from here, I can click and drag to create a rectangle. And then I'm going to go in and go to arrange. I'm going to convert that to outlines. And then I can go in and actually edit the individual points. So I'm just going to take this bottom right-hand corner tool or node, move it up. Now, if I'm not sure that I can get it, perfectly, vertical here, I can hold the shift key and it will actually snap to perfectly vertical. So when I let go, now I have that trapezoid available, and I can select these two objects, arrange and mask. So that's pretty much the same thing there. Okay, so hopefully that will give you some options there, and again, you'll be able to go through, maybe use that for basic business card layout, or some sort of magnetic sign or something along that way. All right, I'm going to wet my mouth just a little bit. I'm sorry, I just got back from Salt Lake City for a full week, so I have caught a little bit of a cold. So if I do cough or clear my throat just a little bit, I apologize ahead of time. So what we'll go into now is we also go into options where you have a bitmap image and you want to take text or some sort of a font and actually put over top of it, and you want to fill that text with this bitmap image. So what we've done, or what we can do, is take our text, which again, you notice that again, it's just a text font here. I'll click and drag this right over top, and then select these two objects, and then go into arrange, mask, and mask. So I can resize that as well, and then I can also apply effects to it and those types of things. So we'll just create, oops, wrong one. I wanted to choose a outline, for example, something along this lines. But one of the questions that I get quite often is, am I able to change the font? Okay, so really at this point, I can't click and drag in the normal way, but I can still do it using my design editor. So in design editor, I can then select my font here, double click on that, and I will be able to, or should be able to go in and actually change the font. So when I choose it to something different and apply it, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't click right on it there. Should be able to change the font to something different, and it should apply the effect with the actual mask still inside of the object. So don't forget, you can still use Design Editor to go back and edit fonts once you go through and actually create your masks. All right, so another object or another thing that we run across is when we're doing background fills. For example, this was a file that I used on a previous webinar. I actually created or just used a bitmap image to create something similar to a an aluminum fill to the back of this this object here. And what I did is I just simply excuse me, created my shape itself, but again, masked it with an image that I grabbed off of the web, or you can use obviously different types of fills and patterns and things like that. So again, it's just a matter of selecting your object, the bitmap image, applying it and putting it over top or underneath your original vector, and then selecting the two objects and then masking. And that object is going to take on the fill. All right. All right, so another that I ran across the other day, thought it was really pretty interesting of how we could actually do this. Had a customer call in, they had an object, a vector-based design that had multiple pieces in it, okay? And what they wanted to do is they wanted to take a tileable pattern. This just happens to be a small one that's in the sample files within your Flexi program. And they wanted to actually fill the entire object with that tileable pattern. So first and foremost, whenever I got the customer's file, nothing was selected or nothing was grouped or compounded. So it was all broken apart and so forth. So it was really difficult to work with, and I had to end up going through and selecting all of this, filling it with the same color, going in and compounding it, which now makes it one solid object. Then from there, I can take my textured or my tileable pattern and go to Arrange and Step and Repeat. So in this case, I can go in and create how many number of copies that I want, left, right, up, down, so forth. And I've actually got a small overlap here as well. So when I hit my checkbox, I now have all of these selected. And then I'm going to actually group these. And that's fairly important when we go to actually fill this object. So I'm now going to take my bitmap image and put it behind my vector object. So we're going to go to Order, send it to the back. And now I can select both pieces, and I would be able to go to Arrange, Mask, and Mask. And I just happen to put a outline around the other one as well. So in this case, again, just allows you to create a tileable pattern and then actually use it as a background fill. All right. So one of the other things that we run across are taking, one question was, let me get rid of this ugly guy here for right now. One of the questions that I get is, can I only mask bitmap images? And it's not really the case. So I have a series of rectangles here. If I wanted to actually take this series of rectangles and I want to crop it out or mask it with this circle, it's easy to do. And you can do it with the vector objects. So I select and make sure that the circle is on top, select the two of them, and then I'm going to right click and mask. And it's going to take on those characteristics from there. So same thing here at the top. It's no different. Using the masking tool, we'd be able to unmask this, and you'll see it just was a picture of a lawnmower, and I'm able to type out my text over top of it, and then at that point select the two, and then from there we can go in and mask from here. So a lot of different things that are are going on here. And one thing I want you all to keep in mind, and maybe this is something again that you all really may not have seen yet or may not have run across yet. Let me see if I can't find that file just real quick, because I had one. Let's see, it was, does anybody do any paint protection film? Or does anybody know what it is? Well, if you do, fine. No, then keep doing. You're probably making really good money at it. The other option is if you don't have paint protection film, for example, but what if you have a customer that wants to actually use paint protection film patterns or window tint patterns or those types of things and actually fill with something similar to a carbon fiber film. And then you can print, laminate, cut, and then apply them directly to your vehicle from there. So going through that, we can take this body line kit, which is for your paint protection film. I'm just going to resize the bitmap, make sure that it is in the back. So Order to the back. Then I can select these two objects and then Arrange and Mask. Now, I just basically failed at the exact same thing that I told you all to do earlier. What I did not do is make sure that the objects that I'm masking are grouped together first. Otherwise, you have to do them individually, and you're going to have 6 different images or 6 different copies of that bitmap. Okay, so that's going to really make a difference. So let's group those back together. Now we'll put this back over top or underneath. Select the two, and then Arrange, Mask, and Mask. So now what we've really done is we've taken something from a completely different market, such as the paint protection film, window tint patterns, those types of things. And we've allowed you to now go in, create custom fills into those patterns, which hopefully will then at that point open up possibly a new market for you, or at least a vertical that will allow you to go in and add other options to your already current client base. So it's not only about what this software is capable of doing, it's what imagination, what are you going to be able to do with the software and put into place in order to actually make more with the software that you already have. Okay, so there's quite a bit of stuff here. We've gone through just the basics of the masking. One thing that we have not done is gone through and actually show you how to actually crop out or mask around a photograph. So I'd like to go through that with you just real quick. And then at that point, we'll go through and we'll take some questions, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import an image here real quick. So I'm just going to go import and we'll take in, fine, we'll just take in this ugly one here. All right, so that's me and my daughter. So from here, what if I wanted to do some sort of a magnetic sign, real estate sign for, real estate agent or something, but I only want my head and this portion of my body on the actual sign itself. So in this case, with the complicated background and everything else, you're going to have to digitize a line all the way around this. So from here, in order to do it, you're going to actually come over to the left-hand side and you're going to use your Bezier path tool. Now, using the Bezier path tool, I recommend that you zoom in on one specific area and then work your way all the way around the object, okay? So from here, it's important for you to think click to click, as in point A to point B. I really don't want you to start editing the line yet. You edit the line after you get the basic line all the way around the object, okay? So real quickly, we'll just go through, I'm just single clicking through this object, and I wanna try to get close. Depending on what type of sign it is, what the viewing distance is away from that sign may dictate how detailed or how close that you need to be to all of this. But again, what I'm just gonna do is very quickly go through. It will not be a real clean cut job. But again, it'll give you the idea. So I'm just single clicking all the way around this design, this image. All right, so we'll just go through. Sorry for you, some of you that are not Georgia fans. Let's see here. All right, so again, I'm just going around the outside roughly, and then you can always come back and use your path editing tools in order to actually really clean up this line in order to get as detailed as you want. All right, so we'll just come on down this way. And we are almost done. So we're just gonna, again, continue following this line, and you can see how zooming into this really helps make a difference. You can also change the color of the line. Right now I'm using just a purple. You see the fill color and the stroke right down here. Oops, there we go. And now I'm down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to scroll over, click on the corner, go back up to the top. Now on this, you're going to actually notice that the Bezier path tool has a plus sign next to it. As I move close to the end point, you'll see that it goes from a plus sign to a circle, meaning that it's going to close the path when I click on it. So it should fill in with a solid color. Created our vector mask around what we want to actually mask. So from here, with this vector on top, I can select both, and then from there, oops, sorry, clicked on that wrong. I'm going to select both pieces and then right click and go down and click on mask. So now I have that completely cropped out. Now again, keep in mind, you can always go back and clean up these lines a little bit closer and so forth, but it's a matter of how much time do you have, how much time do you need in order to actually get exactly what it is that your customer is wanting to pay for. All right. So with that, what I'll do is I'll finish up. Hopefully everybody was able to, learn something a little bit new on this, or at least be able to pick up some ideas. Again, I really think something like the paint protection film patterns, using something that you may already have. And again, it may not be paint protection films, it could be something else. Clip art for that matter, anything. Go back to your old CD cases, pull up some clip art, whatever. Fill it with other other bitmap images and so forth for masks, and start selling those. So there'll be a lot of different things that you should be able to go through and start working with. So hopefully those types of things will really start to help you out, and the masking tool will really make a difference in your everyday life with Flexi software. So with that, I'll go ahead and take a little bit of time for some questions. You're welcome, Kathy. It's good to see you on board again.
All right, well, we do have a
All
lot of
right.
people saying thank you. So sounds like it all went well. Mike did have a question. He just wanted to know if all the shortcuts are the same as in Adobe Illustrator.
No, all shortcuts for all programs are going to be slightly different. There are some things that you can do in order to change shortcuts. You would be able to go through, for example, go to File. You can go into Workspace, and you can then go to Customize. And this is where it's going to actually show you all of the different shortcut commands for each, or the shortcuts for each individual command within the software. So you will actually be able to go in and edit these as well. So if you have any that's specifically in Illustrator that you like, I know the spacebar is one that a lot of customers like. You can actually go in and change that and customize it the way you want to from there. It's not something I recommend, but you can also go to File, go to Workspace, and you can change it to Adobe, and it may change some of those. But the problem that you run into with Workspaces, if you're learning the software, it's a good crutch. But when you call in for tech support, we're going to make you go back to the default because we're not going to educate you on using all of these. We're based everything on the defaults here, okay? So just keep that in mind.
Okay, excellent. And Jenny, yes, this webinar is being recorded, and so we will post that on the SAI YouTube channel. And we will also be sending out an email with the link to the recording to everyone who attended today or who registered. So we will send you that link. And now we did have a question from Nathan about Gina's earlier question. They both said, can you separate the mask from that point for printing individually, or do you still have to mask the boxes separately for that?
You're still going to need to mask the boxes separately for that. The other option would be to still send it at full scale and then use your tiling functions to possibly go at it that way. But no, the objects or the files. I'm sorry, not the files, but the actual the window panes themselves. Let me actually pull that one back right up here. They are one solid piece, and it's actually masking the entire object. So it is still seen as one solid object. So if I move that away, you can see in this case, the way I designed the file, they are separate, but I can't break those apart. But what I could do is actually use my tiling functions within Production Manager and then set a tile right here in the middle. I could then right click on these two to where it will not print those, or right click on the other one, whatever that you want from there. So that's a roundabout way of doing the same thing.
Okay, and then Kelly asked, can you change what is in the right click?
No, the right click right now is based on, it's a contextual menu based on what object you click on. So when I select an object or right click on it, it's going to give you some details or give you the most, programmed code or the options that are available for that specific object. So it's kind of a predictive right click or predictive menu. So it is not going to have everything that you're going to need, but it's going to usually have the most common used features or feature sets in that menu.
Okay. And we had another question. How did you create the window panes that you were using for your presentation
Oh,
here?
okay, so that's real quick, real simple. And I also see one that was asked about rotating the bitmaps or skewing and so forth. So I'll go over that real quick too. So the way I actually did it from here is, let me actually show you. I'll delete this one out. Is I went through and just used my rectangle tool. And from here, I guessed really at this point just for the webinar. But if my window pane was 48 inches wide, 60 inches tall, then at that point I chose an inner border, which is the mullion or the frame itself of a 2-inch gap in between. So now I can single click and it actually creates the object, the rectangle of that exact size with a 2-inch border. So from there, I went back and did the exact same thing, except I just changed the height. I set this one to like 22 and I single click. So that's the one for the top. So then at that point, I can take these two using my alignment functions. I can right click, go to align and do the left option here. And then I'm going to actually go from here and go into spacing, which is not in my option here for right click, but I can go to arrange and go to spacing. The key here is I want that 2 inches to overlap evenly. So I just set this to a vertical and I change this to a -2. So when I do that, now I have basically that left pane. All right, so then I created the one in the middle, and then I took this one and I moved and copied it over to the right. Now the question then is, how do I separate the outside orange piece from the inside? And that's a matter of selecting the two, or all of them really at that point. And I converted them to outlines, and then I could go in and uncompound those. So now I have basically, the silver is what I filled it with here. And just for visual purposes, in my presentation, I filled all of the individual panes with white. So that's basically what I did. Hopefully that helps out. Okay. The other question that came up, which is one that I get, I'm going to unmask this. So this image itself, I can double click, I can rotate this image. I can, do a number of different things. I can skew it and so forth. I can't distort this image, as in the effects and the distortion options, but I can go through and actually work with this and do different things to it, then put it over top, resize, do what I want to from there, and then I can mask it with just, for example, those, and it only does, it's only going to mask that corner. So hopefully that helps out just a little bit. Same thing with the text earlier in the file for lawn service, or the one for my text fill here. So I can take the bitmap, double click, rotate it, I can skew it, a number of things. As long as my text still fits inside of that object, I can select it all and then mask it from there. So you do have that capability.
All right, thank you, Bobby. So we had a couple more questions. First off, Mike asked what the shortcut is to fill, or the outline to fill on the fly. And Chuck said that the fill stroke editor is opened with I on your keyboard.
Yes. So one of the things that I run across on a regular basis is if you have a solid object, for example, and you just want to see the wireframe view, so you only want to see the lines that your vinyl cutter is going to cut, you can hit Control F on your keyboard, and that's a shortcut for the Show Fills option, and it will just show you the actual line path. So I can turn that on and off with the click of the keyboard, or I can also go up to View and Show Fills here. Also in the View menu, you see Fill Stroke Editor. You also see Design Central. Those are the two windows I have open, and most of the time you're going to be using those quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. And Brian had a question about on-site appointments or training.
Most of those we would recommend that you contact your local Flexi dealer, whoever that is. If you're not sure, if you do have that, contact them. They may be able to work out some sort of a plan for you. We do have several throughout the country that will actually do Flexi trainings. Sometimes they're abbreviated, sometimes they're 1 or 2 days. It just really depends on the territory and what that dealer's really wanting to do at that point in time. A lot of times you'll actually find some Flexi training from these dealers around the trade shows as well. The other thing would be is if you don't have a Flexi dealer in hand, or they don't have any kind of scheduled plans, feel free to give us a call. We will be able to see what we can do to work with that dealer or a local dealer to you, and see what we can work out and try to work out some sort of a plan to get you there for some training.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're just about done. We just had another question from Mike. He said, yes, but there's no change fill to match another color with the eyedropper.
Yes, but there's no change fill to match another color with the eyedropper. Let's see. I'm not sure if I'm following that exactly, but let's
Are we still talking about the fill or outline?
I
Mike?
think so. So if we had two objects with two different colors, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if I wanted to actually change this to where, and again, this is a simplified version of this, but if I want green to actually replace the purple in here, I can select the purple. I can use my eyedropper here, single click on it, and then click on the green, and it will fill it with the color that I chose.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers what that question was.
Perfect. And Chris, I saw you asked about getting a recording. And yes, we will be posting it to the YouTube channel, and we will send you a link to that recording so you can watch all of it or whatever segments you wanted to go over as much as you like.
All right. And with that, I want to go through just real quick on our website, thinksai.com. You can go to the support link, and there you have an option for training events. You also have general support. When you click on general support, you'll actually go through and you can scroll down and you'll see options for managing your account, solving a problem, as well as how to, as in the knowledge base, and then also video tutorials. The video tutorials takes you directly to our YouTube channel, which again, as you can see, here's some previous webinars that we've done. And then the other option here for the how to will take you directly to our knowledge base. So if you need to learn how to do mask, you can actually click here to search, and it's going to actually give you a quick tutorial lesson of how to do that.
Perfect. Well, everybody, I do want to thank you for coming. I see we do still have a few questions. We'll have to get to those next time. And Kay, I believe we'll be doing some more webinars, some more in-depth training on color management. And we have a few of those, few existing videos on that YouTube page that Bobby was just showing you. So that may give you a start there. And then we'll be able to answer some more of your questions next time. So we really appreciate you folks coming. Bobby, thank you so much for doing this and answering those questions. And we will see you all in February.
You got it. Thank you all very much.